Hello there. You're listening to Shaff Dives You Crazy podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Shaff Dives You Crazy. Today's guest is someone whose diving resume reads like a science fiction adventure. Edd Stockdale is the driving force behind the Finnish Scientific Diving Academy, a unique initiative that combines polar exploration, cutting-edge science and advanced diving technology. From diving under the ice in the Arctic Circle to leading ocean sensors expeditions, Edd has helped redefine what's possible for scientific diving. He's been featured in a lot of international dive magazines, including In Depth, Eco, Asian Diver, and multiple Nordic broadcasters, and is one of the leading voices in the use of rebreathers and mixed gas systems for scientific exploration. And in this episode, we are going to dive deep into the fascinating world of underwater research, tech diving, and what it means to bring science below the surface. Hey Edd, welcome to the show.
Hi, Shaff. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's nice to be here.
So we haven't seen each other for a long time, I guess. 5 years? Since edX. Can't
Yeah,
even remember.
it's before COVID actually. Since
Yeah.
I was thinking about it the other day because I haven't been on the Asian side. It's ironic because you live in like Switzerland now and I live in Sweden, but it's sort of yeah.
Yeah. Let's start from the beginning for the listeners. How did your dive journey start?
So my dive journey, it's kind of a funny one. Like, um, when I was 5 years old, you know, when you're at school and things, they go, "Oh, what do you want to be when
Yeah.
you grow up?" and everything. And I want to be a marine biologist. And everyone was like, "Oh yeah, that's lovely. Everyone wants to be a marine biologist." And then it sort of continued. And then when I was 10, they asked the same question, and I answered the same way. And when I was turned 12, on my 12th birthday, my parents bought me a dive course because that was the age that you could start diving. I was living in the UK at that stage, up in Scotland, and so when I turned 12, my parents got me a dive course, and then because I had to do it with a parent or a guardian at that time, that's the regulations back then. Um, my dad did it with me, so I learned to dive in like the North Sea off Scotland in the late winter. So it was 2 or 3 degrees, I think my logbook says, from those dives. And so honestly, it wasn't terrible because I mean I'm still doing it, but that's how it began. And then it sort of went up and down all the way through my teenage years. We sort of traveled a bit. We did some diving. My brother and my mother got into it as well, and it became like a family thing. And then when we moved back to Australia, obviously a lot more diving opportunities and hitting it, doing that. And then I started university and I sort of dropped off a little bit for a while because diving costs money and it's really hard to do when you're a uni student,
Yeah.
and focus on some other things. And then I picked it up again later in my student life. And then when I was starting my graduate degrees, I got really back into it. I actually did my dive master twice, which is quite ironic. And I
Why
did
is
it
that?
the first time in 2001 or two, and then I did it a second time in like 2006, I think. And
Okay.
then yeah, then I kind of got hooked down a pathway. It was really funny because I mean, if you'd asked me 2008, 2009, what my interests were in diving, I was doing videography, and all I was interested in was really cryptic critters. I had no
Okay.
interest in wrecks. I had no interest in tech. I had no interest in anything except finding the coolest, rarest little critters
Okay.
and filming them. And that obviously went to the. I wasn't interested in being an instructor either. That all obviously didn't work either because now I predominantly teach technical diving and predominantly do overhead and wreck diving as my pastime. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where it started, and then it just continued from there, I guess.
It's funny. You said you always wanted to be a marine biologist from 5. It's the same thing that pulled me as well from school days. I always wanted to be a marine biologist and all that. But then I got drafted in the military and became a Navy diver. So that part went off, the science part.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people are driven by that dream, and then they sort of just keep going at it and going at it, or it becomes. I think partially like I said, it's like people like, oh yeah, that's nice. Everyone wants to be a marine biologist, but then when people are actually dedicated to that route way, but then when you really get into it, you realize that actually being a marine biologist is, I mean, it's an entire like scope. I mean, when people go when non scientists sort of think about marine biologists, they have ideas in their head of, I don't know, David Attenborough's oceans, or um, people working on whales or something, and you actually realize that when you say that, the biology of the oceans is so diverse,
Yeah,
and the range of science from looking at the small like leg structure of a specific species of crustacean all the way through to large seascape level ecosystems, and they're all fall under the same window. So it's I think the opportunities for diversification for people's interest is huge if the kids get like a real insight into what they can actually do. So
yeah. My niece is just finishing her so- one part of her marine science course in Malaysia.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
So
nice
she
place to do
was,
it.
yeah, she was with the Marine Research Center in Maldives, and then she was helping a lot of researchers with the microplastic research before she went to Malaysia and got some papers published as well.
Okay, that's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really proud of her.
Oh, one member of the family got through to being a marine scientist, so it's
Exactly.
it's a good start.
Yeah. At what point did marine science and diving begin to overlap in your career? Like you said, you were like videography at first, and then now it's more scientific related.
Yeah, I mean, the biology interest was always there. I mean, I did my original bachelor's undergraduate degree was in marine zoology, and invertebrates specifically. And then I always had that naturalist like interest in the system, which is why I dived. And the videography component was just to sort of record and document the what I was seeing and sharing it with other people. Um, and I sort of ended up on this pathway for a very short period, um, where I just went and worked as a sort of a full-time lifestyle tropical diving instructor. After that, so I and I got very bored very quickly of of it. It just didn't keep me engaged. I mean, don't get me wrong; it's a lovely thing to do, and it's a
Yeah.
great experience, and I wouldn't wanted to have not done it. But I ended up, funnily enough, going through one of my old co. So when I was doing my PhD research, one of my fellow students in the same program was working on fish biodiversity and ID systems, and he developed this camera system that they use as part of it. And he contacted me out of the blue when I was working in Malaysia just as a diving instructor. Goes, oh, would you be able to come to Madagascar to do this project with me? And I went, well, yeah, that'd be really interesting. What is it? He's like, oh, next week. I was like, no, I'm sorry, mate. I can't, I can't drop my job at the moment and just travel all the way to Madagascar. I was like, I'd really be interested. He's like, oh, okay. I was like, but what's the gig? Like, what's the job? And he explained it to me, and I said, oh, these guys over here are also interested in doing it. So I ended up in Indonesia at a research station there, as part of that. But I mean, it goes back before that. Like when I was doing my PhD studies, I was using diving a bit for some of the projects that we did. So it was already there. Like that scientific process was already there. And then when I went into this, I ended up on this research station in Indonesia, and I sort of looked at their initial training program and went, well, we could change this, we could develop this, we could like look at different aspects of it. And that was sort of where it built up to and trailed into. And I spent three full seasons there. I ended up working. I was a fellow at the University of Essex. I developed their undergraduate scientific dive programs for them back in. Well, it wasn't the scientific dive programs. It was coral reef monitoring, I think, was the name of the
Okay.
course that we developed. Um, and then I sort of bounced from there. I ended up working for Oxford for a while. And then I ended up with some other universities, different places. And it sort of, I started at this stage, I was already an avid technical diver. And I actually got into technical diving because I saw its potential in advancing the biological research that I was interested in. And that's sort of where, like, if you look 15 years later and where we are now, that's how I kind of ended up where I am. So, um,
Wow. And from tropical environments and to polar cold water conditions, what's the most striking difference between warm versus extreme cold environments?
I mean, apart from the obvious, the so I moved to the Nordics in 2018, I think, and I came here for various personal reasons, and but also I came because of the diving. I came here in 2017 for a visit, and I just realized how good diving was. Like thinking, like I started diving in a dry suit. My open water course in Scotland when I was 12
Yeah.
in 1994
Okay.
was in a dry suit in 2 degrees. So I had done extensive colder water and cold water diving. I came here, I just realized how good the diving was, and it also, I think, the biggest thing is it offered a new challenge to go back and relearn it all, to relearn handling stuff with dry gloves, handling like the weighting, handling just the cold and the shock and everything else. And I like the diving more, to be honest. I mean, I don't. I sound really spoiled when I'm like, oh, tropical like warm water diving is just really kind of boring. I just in comparison, and people go, "What are you completely insane?" But for me, I lost an interest in it, and the challenges and the things we see here up in the north are really interesting. And like the polar stuff is fascinating. I mean, the um, a lot of the stuff we do now is based around occupational work, like scientific projects,
Okay.
professional researchers. That's kind of what I my main focus in everything I do is now. And the courses we are developing, like the polar research diving course, is there to address a loophole. Well, not a loophole. The loophole's the wrong word. To address a void in the training processes globally, mostly because these sites where they used to do all this sort of training just don't exist anymore with the climate change and the warming sea temperatures. You just don't get the ice levels to do it, and there's a desperate need to identify the changes that are happening in the polar regions, both north and south, under the ice or in the water. And to do that, you need to train people to be able to dive and work in those conditions as scientists. And there's no real training options these days except basically going to the site. And the last thing you want to do is fly someone, all the way down to Antarctica and get them on site, and they're supposed to be there for 3 weeks or 3 months or 18 months, and they've never dived in those conditions before. They just hit the water and go, nope, this is not for me. And so we came up with this idea because I work closely with a lot of Antarctic researchers, Antarctic DSOs, dive safety officers, and there was this consistent discussion. I said, well, in Finland, where I work and my main job is based, we have these frozen lakes up in the polar north that are right next to research stations they have analogous conditions for Antarctic or Arctic ice based operations, but they also you can get to them in 2.5 hours from a flight, and you can land in one of the cities either in Finland or just across the border in Norway. Get on a bus, and the bus will literally drop you outside the research station, so you
Okay.
can have all that comfort there of being able to learn, because you need that comfort to be able to learn. Like you can't take someone that's never seen snow and ice or has never dived in sub 10 degrees Celsius waters and then go, all right, we're now going to just put you through hell because their brains are shut down. So we need the right learning environment, the right educational environment to grow their skills. But then we go out onto the ice. So we do the lectures and we explain the theory and we look at the equipment, and then we go out on the ice and it can be -25 with wind chill on top and
Okay.
standing there tendering a diver or the diver kitting up getting in the water. So um, a lot of the challenges that come with those conditions are the surface conditions. The water is always going to be warm enough to allow diving to really happen. You got to be careful of free flows. You got to have specialist equipment, obviously, like
Yeah.
good undergarments, good dry suits, suitable regulators, etc. But most of the problems with all this stuff happens on the surface. When you go like diving gear in it inherently is not designed for sub-zero temperature. Like it's just that's the whole concept of
Yeah.
it. It's just not designed that. So when you've got -20, you've got to move your tank and the regulator and the BCDs and your dry suits, and you've got to change all your protocols. As a normal diver from a warm water environment, you breathe off your regulator and check it, and you breathe off your backup regulator, and you maybe inflate and deflate your BCD just to check it. If you do any of that on the surface in -15 or -20, you instantaneously cause a free flow,
Yeah.
and that's you done. Like you basically have to take the entire equipment back and put it in a warmer area so it can defrost and dry out. Like that's basically what you have to do. So you have to change the protocols, and then you just have to change the way that people work, the efficiency of getting kitted up. You have to change where you do your pre-dive checks and all this. So those components of it make it challenging. They make it interesting. And then when you get below the water, then I mean, the most colorful dive, like stunning, colorful dive that I've ever done. And this is taking into account, I mean, personally how many tropical
Yeah.
areas of the world that I've dived to, all
Yeah.
the way down to triple digit depths. And the most colorful, like stunning biology, like natural history dive that I've ever done has been in the north of Norway, up in the
Wow.
Arctic, way up in the Arctic. Like, and I just jumped in and it was just like, holy, like, it's just like, why, what the hell? Yeah, there was so much life and so much color and crystal clear blue water, and it was like, wow. I don't understand why people don't come here, because all you got to do is just deal with the cold, and you can do that by putting on a dry suit. I mean, the technology these days is so good and it's so easy. So
Yeah. Yeah, you got really good undergarments, dry suits, different companies making it, so why not?
yeah,
I mean, for me, even now, I don't know, diving in Switzerland, it's kind of I've planned a few dives and canceled because I just didn't wanna get in the water with all the gear.
yeah. I mean that is a downside of it, is it just requires more gear.
For
Um,
me, to me, it's that the gloves. That's the thing that is annoying me.
yeah,
I
I mean
I
that's
don't know.
that's a common complaint. But to be honest, actually, like dexterity in a good dry glove, a good fitting dry glove with good undergloves is actually easier than wearing really thick wetsuit gloves, I think. I mean, I don't know. I'm probably a little bit biased because I dive in dry gloves pretty much consistently. I went to do a mission in a tropical region a couple of years ago, and I was running around my dive shed trying to find my wrist seals to put onto my suit. And then I was like ringing Tiff and going, "Where are the wrist seals?" And she's like, "I don't know. We don't use them." And I'm like, "I know, but we must have them. They came with the suits. They must be somewhere."
Uh,
And I was like, "Oh, I don't." I actually had to go and buy a new set of wrist seals to go on this mission because I didn't have any, because I'd lost them or lent them or given them away or something. It was really funny.
maybe I should plan to go and do some cold water diving with you guys, you and Tiffany.
Yeah, you're always welcome. Come up here. I mean, here the cold as
Yeah.
well is nice because there's actually really cool stuff to see as well. Diving in like alpine lakes and things is not. Whereas if you can go to like the North Atlantic coast off the west coast of Norway or Sweden, then you sort of like, oh wow, there's actually amazing stuff. I mean, I was just diving today actually. I was um, got a student here I'm teaching a DPV course to for a couple of days, and um, she's a Baltic diver, so she's really used to cold water and
Okay.
those conditions, but the life here is so different that the biodiversity is massive in comparison. And so yeah, it was just nice to take someone out and they go, wow. Yeah,
Do you miss the warm water diving, tropical waters?
not really. I mean, I still do it. I I find it was really funny. I was on an expedition last year, and after the first dive, I came out, I got on the boat, I sat down, and I was like, this warm water diving is harder than the diving back home. And everyone just looked at me and went, you're insane. You're wearing a 3 mil wetsuit and like it's 28 degrees. I'm like, I know, but I'm so comfortable just living in my, my suit with and all my weighting is perfectly dialed in, like everything else. And it's one of those things. I've changed environments and I've gone to a totally different environment. So then to me, again, it's like, all right, actually, I just got a challenge again. Because there is a challenge going the other way if you're used to, especially if you're diving like deep rebreather work and stuff like that, where you've got lots of stages and everything
Yeah.
else. You've got to have a balance of what equipment you've got with you, and all my equipment is dialed in for sub 10 degrees, and
Okay.
so it was quite funny. But I still do. I mean, I'm heading off in the end of July. I'm going back to a region of the Pacific to do a scientific job, and then in November I might be going back to Southeast Asia to do another scientific job. Um, so I still do those diving, and I go there for work, and um, yeah, I mean, I still do, don't get me wrong, I still do enjoy it,
Yeah.
like tootling around. Actually, I was in Indonesia, in Bali last November. I went over to see an old friend that lives and owns a dive center there, and just had a couple of lovely weeks hanging out and going for some turtle dives and just looking at nudibranchs and um, just other little critters on the north coast of Bali, which is always a nice, enjoyable place. And then going for some good food afterwards and
Yeah.
relaxing, having a beer in the evening, and waking up doing it again.
Yeah.
Actually, a holiday was a novelty.
Tell us about the Finnish Scientific Diving Academy. How did that come to be?
So the FSDA.
Yeah.
So the Finnish Scientific Diving Academy is the national training facility in Finland for scientific diving. Um, and it started in August 2021. So sort of to cut a very, very long story a little bit shorter, but it'll probably still be quite long, is when COVID hit, I was obviously doing expedition logistics, scientific diving support globally. Like I was flying places and doing projects, and that was my job. And COVID, obviously, no one was doing any expeditions, so I lost my job, and I ended up actually fixing dry suits. I got employed by one of the distributors and service centers in Sweden to become their service technician. So I was fixing dry suits, regulators, scooters, bits and bobs for them for COVID. And this sort of went on as COVID extended and extended. And I was sort of it was great. I mean, it was a fun job, but it wasn't what I'd spent 10 years of my life training to do.
Yeah.
And then I got this phone call from a friend in Finland who was like, "Would you be interested in running a scientific dive training school in Finland?" Like, because this, I was like, "Yes, yes, I'd be very interested." He's like, "Okay, here's the advert. Applied for it." So I sort of applied for it, and I got the interview, and um, then I got the job. And they rang me back the next day and basically went, "Yes, we want you." So it was completely crazy, So they've employed an Australian to come in and run a school. So it started back then it basically needed to address a hole in training demand in Finland for scientific divers because there's a huge amount of science done by by divers in Finland. They've got the national biodiversity inventory. They've got the museum does loads of works on the wrecks. They've got the research stations that have lots of divers doing underwater experimental work, such as the one I work at, which is the Termina Zoological Station. And they basically didn't have a training school anymore because the last one closed down in like 2008, 2009. And all the older scientific divers are finally starting to get to that point where they're either being promoted up or they're being retired out.
Okay.
And there was just no young blood coming through. So my job was to basically establish a whole training structure to meet the European scientific diving, European scientific diver and advanced European scientific diver standards of competency, which is this European agreement on the levels, and create a training program, advanced scientific diving, and make the whole thing like long-term sustainable. So they had an initial seed funding from a couple of philanthropic foundations to get the whole thing going, and then they employed me and then let me loose to basically create something,
Okay.
which I did. So that was almost 4 years ago now, and so we created the first. We created our first course, which was the main core course, which was the occupational scientific diver, and this is a course to train a diver that comes in with very very low levels of training, so that like maybe an advanced open water or a CMAS 2-star diver with 20 to 50 dives. That's the sort of minimum entry requirement,
Okay.
and train them up to be a professional scientific diver and also scientific site supervisor. So that course is a 6-week full intensive program, like 6 days a week. The students end up doing horrendous hours because they have all these assignments that they get as part of it. They get trained not only in the scientific diving techniques, but they get trained in leadership and human factor training, like how to manage teams and team dynamics and non-technical skills.
Okay.
We integrate a lot of Gareth Locke's work from the Human Diver program. So they do the essentials course before they begin the program. We use a book, which is Risk Management for Dive Operations, which talks very, very heavily about leadership and its role in risk management. Um, so they get these components as well. So
Is that the book by the Australian guy?
no, this is by Giorgio from Woods Hole
Okay.
in the States. I can send you the link for it. I think there's a review coming out for it maybe next month. Um, in in depth, I wrote a review for it, book review, um, and it's an absolute brilliant piece of work. It's very very it combined with Gareth Under Pressure combined is
Okay. Wow.
Gareth's is much more theoretical,
Yeah.
and then Giorgio's is much more like application based. So the two of them together are like a massive, powerful tool for educating these young like marine scientists to develop the skills to be able to improve their team dynamics and their safety, the non-technical skills as well as the technical skills. Then they learn things like boat driving, navigation. For the vessels, they learn how to handle boats around divers. They learn how to fill tanks. They learn basic service and repairs. They do full face mask communication systems, um, and a huge array of stuff. I mean, it's a very, very intensive course.
Wow. So it's not like a traditional science course, right?
No, it's basically we've looked at a lot of the scientific life courses out there, and we're trying to modernize the system because a lot of these things that we teach are vital to any dive operations, but they're very relevant to scientific dive operations. So we created our program, and I literally last week finished the final examination for the fifth course that we've run, and the courses are anywhere between 8 and 12 people usually, and we run 2 a year usually, but we missed one because of COVID sort of kicked off a little bit at the start of 22, so we had to cancel one
Yeah.
course. And then autumn last year, I was away on a research expedition, so I couldn't run the program, so it got delayed. But we just finished one last week, so I don't know when this is going to be published, but basically the end of June, and then the next one will start in the end of August, and that will go on for another 6 weeks again. and a lot of the students are being employed like globally as well. Like we have one student who was working in Portugal. We've got one that's working in Spain. One of our students, she's in Sweden. She's working for a consulting agency there. We have students working in Vienna, um, Ireland, various other places. So it's been quite an extensive like success. But then we created a bunch of other programs to go along with it. So um, rebreathers, for example, are becoming a vital tool for scientific diving. This is not a new thing. It's been happening for 15, 20 years, but it's becoming more and more prevalent. And the problem is there was no actual training structure for doing science on the rebreather. Either someone had to create their own program to train their own team to work on it. For example, the guys from the California Academy of Science, they still do have a really good training program for their own team to work together to learn how to use them. But there's no sort of way. So a lot of people are just doing a scientific dive course on a open circuit single tank structure, and then they're going away and doing a rebreather course within the sport diving world rebreather course. And then they put the two together and then they go, but the operational procedure and the way you manage it and the actual task loading and everything is totally different. So we created a rebreather European scientific, like an occupational rebreather program for science. So we ran the first one in 2023. We had some problems with it, with the way it was working. Uh, Partially when we ran it, where we ran it, but also um, partially the design that I put in for it was a little bit out. So that's a mistake that I made. But we took it, finished it, we addressed the issues that we had with it, and then we've rewritten those components, and now we've got it out again. So there will be one of those running in probably either December this year or in April next year. And it's a 4-week training program, 3 to 4 week training program. So that's an interesting one. And then we have our polar research diving program that's been run twice now, and that's been a huge international relevant or internationally relevant program. A lot of interest from people all over. I mean, to the level that this year the 2025 program had 12 students attending, and we only had one Finnish attendee. The rest were all internationals from as far away as New Zealand. So um, we have a new program in 2026 that's coming, which is the Polar Level 2 program, which is the expedition diver. So a lot of these, especially in the Antarctic programs, the diving operations can be remote. So they actually go out and they live on the ice. And well, it's not only the diving operations, it's the general science operations. They go further away from the bases. They set up a base camp and they live there for an extended period. So we're training people now for pre-deployment in how to manage those situations, how to pack, how to think about what you're doing, how to cook food for yourself on a stove, how to poop in a bucket, like how to
Yeah.
dig an ice hole when it's -20 outside and you've got to keep the ice hole going, how to drive snowmobiles, how to pack sleds. So we're developing this program and it's going to be run over 2 weeks. And the students are going to learn, they're going to do the level 1 program. They're learning all the diving and the sort of the general introduction to the supervising of dive sites. And then the level 2 program is going to be actually taking all those skills and then learning the survival skills more intensely. And then they're going to go 20 kilometers into the mountains in the far like Arctic north of Finland to go to another lake that's up there, and they're going to set up a base camp on the lake, and they're going to live like on the lake for 4 days, doing actual science projects. We have science projects that they're doing in that lake, so they're going to go in and learn from that. So that's another program we've got. We've got first aid, polar first aid courses coming. We've got algal and marine plant ID courses. We've got a scientific DPV course. It's being written at the moment. We've got photogrammetry courses coming. So we've expanded from basically like in 2021, it was me sat in an office trying to come up with ideas. Now we've got a team. There's 2 full-time members running the operations, myself, and then there's Eric Lewitz, who's a well-respected scientific diving instructor and technical diver. And then we have a part-time team of about 6 or 7 people now on the books. And then in addition to that, we do a lot of consultancy for other operations that want training, developing techniques, doing research ourselves, and also working for research expeditions. Like we work with the Ocean Census Project, which is a global project to identify new species in marine systems. We work with some other organizations. We have a lot of stuff that we do that we can't talk about, obviously,
Yeah.
which are hidden away in different places. And we do a lot of PPW stuff actually, and like potentially polluting wreck work in the Baltic as well. Like we've been working a little bit doing some surveys there. We're developing some techniques with various organizations to try and improve the efficiency of that. That's another small project that's going on. So yeah, it's been a very interesting, very busy, very stressful 4 years. But we've we're obviously doing something right because lots of people are very positive about us. I'm sure there's naysayers out there as well, but I don't really pay attention to.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
So it's but yeah, it's been an interesting ride, and it's just growing. So hopefully in the next couple of years there will be some really big developments, and we'll go from there.
Polar level 2 course sounds like a special ops course because of all the stuff you guys are making the students do.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, they're gonna have to do it out on the ice anyway, and we know that from
Yeah.
experience. Like, I mean, the academy, the Finnish Scientific Diving Academy is part of the University of Helsinki. So I worked for the University of Helsinki direct, even though we're a national facility. And my bosses at the research station we work at, they've done multiple expeditions to Antarctica, and they lived out on the ice,
Wow.
on the Ross Ice Shelf for 3, 4 weeks, I think, in base, doing dives under the ice, like literally sleeping in tents on the ice and doing dives twice a day and having to go 2 kilometers to a glacier to cut off ice blocks to melt to drinkers drinking water, or have to go and fill tanks when it's -30, and we have to
Yeah.
cook food, and we have to empty, because especially in the polar regions you can't leave any waste, especially human waste, because it just doesn't go away. So you have all those components. You've got just the general day to day of like living in a tent with no running water, and like hygiene and food and everything while working intensely. So it is a part, like it sounds like a special ops component, but it is extreme science, but it is something that needs pre-deployment training, because you don't want to send someone, like I said, you don't want to send someone down there and then they go,
Yeah.
oh, this isn't for me. You want them to arrive on site with a mental model of what they're going to be doing. And we have that opportunity to offer that. We have the expertise in the team that I have running it. I mean, there's various people doing different things with it. And one of the big things with the FSDA is we don't know everything. So when we need to teach something new, I find an expert in that field. So, like for example, our basic DAN first aid courses on the Occupational Scientific Diver program, they're run by a hyperbaric and diving physician and research hyperbaric researcher in Finland. She's one of the top people in the Nordics looking at cold water diving physiology, and she comes in and teaches that program, because yes, I can teach a basic oxygen provider and first aid program, but I'm not an expert in that. So the polar program as well, I have people that have spent multiple missions in both polar north and south that come along, and they are involved with running it. We have people that are experts in logistics. I actually have a guy that comes to teach. Well, I have 2 guys that come and teach the snowmobiling, and one is he was an ice rally instructor. So he was like one week before he came to teach a course with us. I think he was teaching some F1 drivers how to ice rally. Like, then the next week he's coming up and teaching our guys how to snowmobile. And then one of the other guys is a specialist in remote videography, like super remote. So he's um, done loads and loads of very, very remote expeditions on snowmobiles, and he teaches our snowmobile course. So I think it's one of the pleasures of the job is the fact that I get to associate with all these people that have all this expertise and knowledge in different areas that are all driven by one thing, which is just improving our ability to do science and our education, and they really are involved with it. So
Must be really interesting. I'm gonna tell about this to my niece. Maybe she'd be interested to go and do the basic course.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually I'm in discussions at the moment of potentially running one of the European scientific divers in. I've got a various discussions with various like places in tropical areas
Okay.
because there is a need for scientific dive training in many places, and Malaysia included. Um, and we've been looking at options of how to basically integrate it into our array of courses because it'd be good to take our students that have only ever dived in the Baltic and allow them to dive
In the tropics,
uh,
yeah.
in the tropics and learn the tropical environment.
Yeah.
And same for people in um, like 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 who needs to have access to these programs.
Yeah.
So and there's a lot of interest in it. So yeah, it's
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. Just to cross train, right?
yeah, it's just to
Just to get the experience. Yeah.
expose people to different areas. But some people I mean, some people don't want to come to Finland and learn how to dive in a dry suit and dry gloves and do all the science work. I mean, they'll be a much better diver at the end run. But um, you also can, if it's not relevant to what they're ever going to do, then there's other routes. And then there's also the experience of the people that have learned how to dive like that to go and experience things like venomous marine creatures and heat exposure and salt and things like that. So we are specialists in cold water based science diving. That is what we're really good at. And we'll continue to work towards various ideas. But I mean, my biggest problem is I get bored very easily. So once I've finished a program and it works and it runs, I kind of come up with something else to develop. And then I'm like, oh, we could do this, and oh, we could do that. I think that's my biggest problem in life is I'm just too attracted by all the amazing things that are potentially out there to do. So,
Talking about Finland, me and my wife, we did our full mine course in Finland in
oh,
the
you went
cold.
to Montala, didn't you?
Uh, and there was Kartala or something as well. I
Yeah,
can't remember now.
Kartala and Montala.
Montala. Yeah.
Montala's the proper mine one, and
Yeah.
Kartala just has some smaller tunnels down the back of
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it was interesting. Pretty exhausting, to be honest.
yeah. That there is that side of it.
And we didn't have any heating on, so it was just, and it was in October.
Oh, I mean, that's the warmest time, really.
Ah, yeah, maybe for you.
No, I mean, you got like Montala is one of my favorite mines in the world to dive. It's really is. It's like it's my favorite mines in Sweden. But Montala is up there in my list of very pretty interesting systems. Um, so, but I mean, it's one thing we do a lot of in the Nordics is diving flooded mine systems. Um, and because we don't have many caves. Well, Finland has no caves.
Miko has invited me to dive with him in some of the Thai mines he's discovering.
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
want to. I really want to go and have a look at those.
Yeah.
So, Nico, if you're listening to this, I want my invite to come and dive. um, yeah, it'd be interesting to see them because it's something that's growing now. I was sat in a conversation 5 years ago, 4 years ago, something with a training agency when I was still writing for training agencies,
Uh-huh.
and the one of the training directors was like, "Oh, are there any warm water mines anywhere in the world, or are they all cold?" And I was like, "No, there are warm water mines. I mean, one of the biggest tin mines in the world is in KL, was just outside KL.
Is it?
Um, yeah, yeah.
I didn't
There's
know
a there's a
that.
group there's a group of Malaysian cave and mine explorers that dive it. Um, the There's a lot of actual cave diving in Malaysia as well. Actually, they've got a really really good underground scene going on of local divers that are doing some really really impressive work over there. Um, and then yeah, there's stuff in Greece. There was a whole bunch of warm water ones down there as well. But I mean, yeah, they're not as established or well developed as the Nordic ones or the German ones, for example. No, you should come over and dive Longbourn sometime. That's the amazing one.
Yeah,
That's the mine that Phil, myself, and Oscar do a lot of and Johan do a lot of exploration in. And It's the warm Swedish mine. It's the warmest Swedish
I'll try to find time to go.
mine.
Hey, yeah, you did some work for BBC, right? For some documentaries.
No, I've never done any documentary work with um, the BBC. I've
Okay,
done documentary work with I've worked with like local broadcasters in Finland and Sweden,
okay,
and Estonia. Actually, we had a documentary come out this year, January this year, that we did some work with. Um, but I've never done any BBC um, documentary work or anything like that. We did some stuff with Nat Geo once, but not really huge. It never went anywhere. They sort of filmed it, but it never got published. So
oh, once you go into BBC, that's like you're on the top, right?
yeah, I guess I mean the some of the especially the National History Unit has
Yeah.
some great stuff going on in there. But it kind of diversifies away from what I do. Like my focus is actual hardcore scientific diving component. So I'm interested in developing techniques and training
Yeah.
on that. I mean, I don't even really shoot filmed. Like I haven't. When I was right at the back of the beginning, I was like, I did a lot of cinematography, or cinematography, filming, videography, whatever you want to call it. But I sort of dropped away from that. I occasionally shoot photos or small videos in the mines, but most of the time I'm actually the person fiddling, doing stuff, carrying like bunch of scientific equipment and sampling bags and everything else. So it's that's sort of my area of interest is the focus of trying to get the best data and the best samples and the best experimental results that we can get from the time that we have, especially where you're doing the deep stuffs.
Okay. And you've done a lot of dives under ice, so how do you prepare for it
Mentally or in terms of,
mentally?
I mean, ice is just, I don't, I think I come from a different mentality because I was an overhead diver long before I was diving a lot under ice.
Okay.
So to me, it's just another hard route. The techniques are slightly different in terms of for scientific work under ice, we have to have tether lines. That's the way our standards and our system runs. Um, but I have cut holes in ice to go into like caves and mines, and when we just run a cave line through. But that's not working time. That's my own personal time.
Okay.
Um, but I don't think it really diversifies that much away from being just a general overhead diver. I think if you ask some of my students that question when they're like the first time they dive under ice, and they've never dived in caves or in overhead environment, I think they would have a different answer, to be honest. Um,
Okay.
but that would be the way I would think about it. Um, yeah. Sorry, I can't really add much to that question.
Was there any unexpected wildlife encounter? Something beautiful under the ice?
um,
Maybe just the ice under the ice itself is beautiful, most probably.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing with a lot, especially our courses that we do, and a lot of under ice stuff is that um, for it to be sea ice, you really have to be in the Antarctic or up in the far North Arctic um, to get the stuff that you would see there. Um, where our training sites are, or where we do most of the ice holes, they're generally lakes because it's fresh water. And I mean, there is a very, very cool species of fish that lives in the far northern Baltic and also in the lakes up in the far north, which is a burbot, and they only um, mate when the water temperature is below, I think, 4 degrees and under ice cover. So they're really docile fish. Like you find them and they sort of sat next to rocks. They look like they're dead half the time. You sort of swim up and they kind of look at you and go, "Hello, I'm really slow. Like, what are you doing here? What are you?" Yeah, and then they just sort of meander off. You get some interesting things sometimes that you just don't expect to see there. But also, like in the northern Finnish lakes, there's a lot of leftover heritage. Um, because when the Germans were retreating back through to Norway at the end of conflict, um, they were dumping a lot of their gear, like tanks and firearms and helmets and things, in the lakes, or they were leaving them on the lakes, and they just when the ice melted, they fell through. So you sometimes find things, you look at it, and you go, "What's that? Is it a bomb? Is it this? Is it that?" And you take photos of it, and you go and have a look at it afterwards. You go, "Oh, actually, no, it's someone's weird fish trap." Like it's well, sometimes it is ordnance. Uh, Miko actually, like he you talk about, he filmed a really good documentary series. Was part of a really good documentary series called The Unknown War, um, which was about the conflict in the far north of Norway and Finland, and they died a lot of these lakes. So a lot of them really like horrible condition lakes as well, like low visibility, high tannins, and it's definitely a documentary worth watching if you can find it.
Yeah, I'll ask Miko which one that is. Try to get it. You mentioned Ocean Sensors Project. So that's one of the largest marine biodiversity initiatives. What's your role in it?
So I am part of or I'm a partner in the program. So the Finnish Scientific Diving Academy is a partner to run their technical diving operations.
Okay.
So we run their all the diving ops or technical diving missions because they have different uh, sampling projects. They have submarines, deep sea submersibles, deep sea landers. Um, they have just general sort of collection programs way outside of diving range, and then they have mesophotic diver base programs because there's a huge amount of diversity in that mesophotic range that's still not discovered yet, especially in certain regions. So I run the teams that do all that sampling work, uh, everything from the actual uh, deep research sampling divers all the way through to the sport divers, and helping helping gather as many high quality samples as we can, managing all the risk management, evacuation procedures, the diving operations, all those components. Um, so we started our first mission with them was in 2023, end of 2023. We were in the Tenerife project, which was a submersible and technical diving combined project. Um, and that was their first flagship expedition. That was a big success. Um, and we're not just the only people. Like the ocean sensitive teams are huge. They're diverse. They had in 2024 we didn't have a diving operations mission, just because the way the calendar worked out, and they were focused on some opportunities they had with deep sea research vessels. But they were down. They were working with NIWA in the New Zealand. They were with the Schmidt Institute in the South Sandwich Islands. They just finished the Jam Tech, so the Japanese Shinkai submarine was doing. They in inverted commas shallow. It was only 3,000 meters, I think, sampling.
Shallow.
Because the Shinkai is one of the deepest rated subs out there. But then later this year, we have a diving based one, and then next year we have a couple more lined up potentially. But they're complex programs because you don't just need a dive team to go and operate. You need a dive team that has a significant number of biologists on it, as well as media people, as well as like I always had a dive medical technician. I always have a chamber operator on my team. I always have someone that's really good with cameras to document what we're doing. And then we also need the actual taxonomic experts for each of the different clades that we're collecting, so that they can actually identify what they're looking for and whether we're actually collecting new species, or if there's something we've missed, or there's something in a photo that they go, oh, we want this. So you got all those, and then you have to have the actual the workup. Like you have to actually go through all the samples and do all the taxonomic components of it and upload those data in a consistent system. So to organize one of these expeditions is a massive amount of work.
Yeah, I
Um,
bet.
and their head of expeditions, as a gentleman called Joe Sharman in the UK, is brilliant at it. Like he's always looking for opportunities to advance the science and his day-to-day sort of role of what he does, while also communicating what he's done, while having the public outreach. And um, it's a great organization to work with. It takes time to organize everything, but when we actually do a mission, the number of samples, the amount of data we get is huge, and it's really, yeah, it's really worth doing. And hopefully it will continue for the next. I mean, it's the initial plan was a 10-year funded project, and we're only in year 2 and a bit. So we just started the year 3 component because they started in May 2023, I think, March or May 2023. I can't remember exactly. And then we've got lots of missions to do. I mean, I think we're already over the 1,000 new species
Wow.
since Tenerife in 2023. So yeah, it's an amazing project to be part of, and there's so many people, like a huge international partnership with all these players globally, that are all working towards a common goal again, which is just really nice to work with as well.
How does your work in the field help bridge the gap between science and public understanding, especially when it comes to climate change and marine conservation?
That is a very actually important question. It's a very good important question because it is something that we work on a lot in our small like research uh, station and our like larger scale partnership. One of the things we do is we try and communicate what we do in public general outreach. So we write articles for various media. We get involved with trying to do documentary work, like we talked about earlier. We give lectures to school groups or teachers. I gave a lecture earlier this year to a course of biology teachers from all over Finland who came to learn about how to teach biology in a more field environment. So there's the drive of one group of experts. So it's a continuing education, professional development. So we got invited to come and give a presentation on how scientific diving and everything works as part of it. Um, our research station actually has a dedicated science communications officer. She comes from a journalism background, and her role is to open up and talk to the next generation, to talk to the public, to look at all the opportunities where we can share what we're doing in terms of the science, in terms of the the results of it, in terms of how people can change their behaviors. There's sort of the whole array of answers that could be related to that. And that is a very, very powerful tool because it allows you to show what we do in terms of the larger scale scientific community. Um, our research station has a huge amount of climate. We have the Coast Clim group or center, which is the coastal ecology and climate research, and they're looking at the interaction between differentiation in the biodiversity and how it's long all the way through the system from microbial and benthic all the way through the water column, through the pelagic, all the way to the atmospheric, and looking at the water chemistry, the atmospheric flux measurements of greenhouse gas emissions, and relating it to how the actual ecology of the system works. And it's a huge group. I think there's 60, 70 people plus between three different institutes that are involved in it. It's focused at our station. And that in itself, if we just didn't communicate that, you know, would just be another research group that the general public don't really know about. But because we have this dedicated science communication person, we have regular talks, we put out newsletters, we have public presentations. I think it's once a month, online presentations where it's explaining what's going on, and just trying to get that information out there. So that's just within our system. But if you look at the larger scale things like Ocean Census, to go back to them, they have a really good outreach. It's very important. It's written into their philosophies and long-term goals is to not only do the work, but also share what's going on in a way that a non-taxonomist would understand it and get excited about it. Um, I think at this point, we're living in a very we're living in a new age of ocean exploration, uh, which is kind of countered by a new age of conflict as well. But the the new age is like there's all these philanthropic organizations funding ocean research. There's all these new expeditions and projects and collaborations. I mean, you've got the UN Ocean Decade, which is a core like meeting focal point of that. But you have organizations like Deep in the UK. You've got the Inkfish organization. You have the Schmidt Institute. You have Ocean Census, which is funded by the Nippon Foundation. And these are just to name a few of the major players. You also have like lots of other organizations doing amazing work under the radar a little bit more. And it's really driving what is desperately needed, which is research in the marine systems and the protection of it. And to do that, you need divers. You need properly trained divers. You need properly trained ROV specialists. You need submersible specialists. You need scientists. You actually need marine scientists who are going to sit and do the number crunching and the sample crunching after the specialist teams have collected the data or the samples or the observations. I think it's an exciting time, um,
Yeah,
and I think the integration of citizen science to it is also important if managed in the correct way, to get the general public involved. But there's a difference between just getting involved in science because it's something that feels good, and actually doing it properly. Like you still, even a citizen scientist still has to go out and get trained properly for whatever project it is they do, and they have to commit to something. Otherwise, it can't just be like a hobby. Like, oh, I'm going to go and do this, but then you get other things in your life taking it over, and then you don't do it. Then all the data doesn't become valid. Um, so there's a sort of a two-edged sword there in terms of like um, having the need for citizen science, but also having the need for the citizen scientists to be involved in a way that actually contributes to science, not just to their own interests component. But I still think it's a very important thing.
there is even now a lot of climate change deniers, no? And especially now, coming from the US, the president wants to open up deep sea mining and all that.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know how that's going to change. That's going to help.
deep sea mining is not. That's an entire another podcast, to be honest.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll do that later then.
it's yeah. It comes to this whole point, I think, where this scientific outreach and understanding to the general public is so important, because you have a topic like deep sea mining, and there are people who are experts in the field in terms of impact and potential risks, and unless that is communicated in a way that your general, like, public people sitting watching their TV at night or going to their 9 to 5 in the city, um, have an interest in, it's not really going to go through when you have the counter to it, which is like the populism style, who can yell about it the loudest. And that goes back. So I'm not really going to comment on
Yeah,
sort of policies and things like that. But I think, to go back to that message, is that scientific outreach, that interest level, those documentaries like you talk about, like the BBC documentaries and Nat Geo and all the other amazing media production people that are working tirelessly, whether it be written or visual or podcasts, like audio, to share the messages of this amazing work that's being done to try and get people's interest up. Um, then yeah, it's sort of, they're all part of the same. The two sides of the same coin, as if you think about it, like the science outreach, they are part of the science outreach if it's done properly. So therefore, you need it to be done properly, but then also you need the science to be done in such a way that it's also done properly. And they, yeah, it's that's kind of, I think the message that you really want to share from that is that if you are doing amazing, well, not even, it doesn't, amazing science sounds like, oh, there's only some of it's amazing. All of it really is. If you're doing research and you're wanting to make this research impactful in a way that will change systems and whatever, then you need it to be communicated well. And to be communicated well, it has to have the correct mindset of the journalists or the filmmakers or the podcast shows, or however it is, to share those discoveries in a way that makes sense. You have to be able to communicate complex notions to in a simple way without, and that is a skill. That is where science communication is really a vital skill. We actually integrated that into our occupational scientific diver, was media management. Um, so we actually had some science communicators that joined the show, not the show, joined the course, and science communicators that joined the course, that were learning about the scientific techniques so they could write or talk about them better and have an understanding of what was going on. And it worked really well because it allowed the marine science students that were on the course to learn how to interact with the media when they're doing their projects. And that was a really interesting component, because it taught them what to say, how to say it, when to say it, but also how to deal with a camera being around you all the time, or someone there that's listening to what you're saying, and but also integrating them into the team so that the safety component is using them as well. And it had a lot of good feedback when we ran it, so something that we continue to do.
that's nice. Let's talk about rebreathers. You've written about rebreathers, you're a rebreather diver. And are there any gear innovations you've helped develop that's adapted for use in extreme environment?
Yeah, I mean, I work very closely with Divesoft, who make the Liberty CCR, um, and they there's a lot of the developments they have a very extensive testing process and a very really good research and design unit. One thing we did develop was the dive, excuse me, the dive soft Liberty Heavy. I was involved with the development of the frame and testing and process, but it's because I needed a unit for cold water environments that was um, set up for the sort of diving that we do. So my shed actually, my well, I call it my dive shed, my workshop is full of bits of prototype dive stock Liberty frames and things like that. So that's one component I did work on. Not really in terms of technology. From my biggest developments have been in terms of um, risk management and operations. So developing operational procedures and doing risk management components for using rebreathers for scientific work or for other projects like film and media. And that's really where my expertise is. I'm a writer, like in terms of developing programs. That's why I work in education and courses and that. So I use my expertise for that and sharing knowledge, whether it be the dive courses themselves, like rebreather dive courses. I've written training material for a number of training agencies for rebreathers. I've worked and assisted and edited various others. I've written the occupational training program for rebreathers. I've written what is now being used as the operational procedure by a number of Finnish organizations for science for rebreathers. Um, so that I think would be my biggest contribution to the advancement of rebreathers in terms of how we go about it rather than the technology. Like I'm not an engineer. I have ideas about what I want and how it will work. And I do fiddle and then fiddle with my own unit and I send the ideas to Divesoft. But when they come up with a new idea, like they do run it past their test team and they do ask us, which is really nice. It's really good to be involved with a manufacturer that goes, oh,
I mean, I'm using types of Liberty side mount for this across Maldives project, and it's, to be honest, one of the best units I've ever dived with.
yeah, I mean the engineering behind the Cyberpunk Liberty is it's crazy. When
Yeah,
I first looked at it, I went and looked at it at a dive show just before they released it. I can't remember whether it was Bort or Baltic Tech or something, and I just went, "Wow! Like how have you engineered this package?" You know, it's
yeah,
just I was like, "Wow, this is really impressive." And I've used it like independently. I've used it I did some trials with it as a bailout unit for some of the deep mine exploration we're doing, and components like that. Um, I predominantly personally, I dive with back mount, but that's just because I live in a cold water environment and side mount in cold water environments unless you really need it, is quite challenging. And it's just not as comfortable as diving. Like if you diving caves or tight passageways, or you're doing a mission that requires you to lump something in like huge distances, then yeah, it's a bit different. But for day to day sort of diving in open water or whatever, I dive my back mount mostly.
yeah. Why I chose the Divesoft side mount is because I needed to be streamlined on the scooters,
Mm.
long distances, and also I needed an ECCR because I'll be doing 10 plus kilometers every dive, and I just don't want to concentrate on anything else other than just the the nav system and my computer on the rebreather. That's it.
Mm.
And we did a test. I did a lot of dives last February, and it was amazing. Even in strong currents, drifting, pretty cool. And the work of breathing is really good.
Well, the work of breathing on it for a side mount unit is excellent. I remember when I jumped in the water with our mutual friend Nadia. to do my initial training on it, and I was giggling the whole time, and he looked at me, and I was like, the work reading is like really, really good. And he's like, I know. And I was like, no, like it's really good. And I dived it. For scooting, like you said, streamlining actually it's really good as well. My friend and I here actually we did it's just a stupid project that we were trying for ages. We were trying to scooter the entire length of one of the fjords in Sweden. And we tried it a couple of like 3 times before we managed to actually link the whole thing. Um, and I did it on my side now, and it was yeah, it was good. It was a nice system for it. It works. So you'll be happy to know like we did in excess of 13 Ks on that dive, and we're also like it's in dry suits and everything else. And yeah, it works really well. I just continue doing its thing. So
I tried the unit for the first time in Malta last year, September, with Alan from TechWise.
yeah,
Because DiveSurf sent the unit there and I picked it up when I was there. And underwater, as soon as I started breathing, I was like, wow,
yeah, that's a good unit. It's
this is so easy. And the company is so good. I mean, love how they respond to the emails, to the messages, and helping out with everything. And also, they were the only company who said yes to my crazy idea of across Maldives.
yeah, they are a nice organization to work with. Like I've worked with extensively with a lot of different rebreather manufacturers and suppliers, and there have been others that have also been excellent in terms of it. They just, for various reasons, they haven't worked with my location and the way that we've gone ahead. And but I mean, for me, like rebreathers are a tool. There's no perfect rebreather for anything, and it's it really is what you want to dive with and how you're going to use it.
Yeah,
And that's kind of, I mean, if I had a perfect rebreather for every sort of different diving I was doing, I would have like a room full of them, and then I wouldn't be able to use any of them specifically. Instead, I've got a room full of just liberties. So um, it's but you know, it is it is like what it is. It also depends on one of the big things for rebreather divers. I think is that you have to look at what's around you as well, because it's all good being like this is the best unit in the world and it's going to work perfectly for me, and you're the only person in the entire country that does it. And so therefore you need to keep all the spare parts yourself, you need to maintain it yourself, you don't have a service center probably. And so as soon as a few units start turning up, people go, oh, actually this could be a unit. So and I mean I've dived extensive, I don't know how many different units I'm qualified on now, and they each has something that's really nice about it, and they all have something that I hate, liberty included. And it's just whether the positives outweigh the negatives. And in the end of the day, they're just a tool. Like they're a tool to get me down. Same as my DPV, same as my dry suit, same as all the rest of it. It's a tool that does a job that allows me to go and do whatever it is that I'm supposed to be doing that day underwater. And that sort of comes down to however many years I've been doing this is kind of where I've come to. It's like I don't need to be like I wear a blue dry suit, therefore I'm going to be on this side, and you wear a yellow dry suit, so therefore you're going to be on that side of the fence, and we're never going to talk because your yellow branded dry suit's different to my blue branded dry suit. It's just like oh whatever, you know, go and go and dive. We're all divers. Let's just go and dive and
yeah,
like do it sensibly, get the training, do it properly, do it
yeah.
sensibly, and then you'll
Do your thing. Enjoy.
you'll have a good time. And I think the biggest thing is get training, to keep training.
Hey, Ed, one last question before we end. What advice would you give to a young diver listening who wants to blend science, exploration, and conservation?
That's a tricky last question, Shaff. Um, I would say that. it needs resilience to do it. It's like to combine all those things, you need resilience because they're not easy. Like each of those three on their own is not easy. All three of them together would definitely not be easy. It's a hard but very, very fulfilling, worthwhile pathway. But it's not all going to be like the stunning Instagram pictures or the videos that you watch. There's a lot of hard work. I mean, science inherently in itself, just the nature of the whole process is repetitive and it has to be done. Like you can't go to the dive site and be like, oh, you know what? It's raining today. I don't want to go diving. Or, oh, it's a bit like, just don't feel like it this morning. You have to go. Like you just have to go diving. You have to put your dry suit on and your gear on and jump in. And if it's zero vid and you've got to fumble around with your hands trying to find the data source or whatever, you just have to do it. My biggest things I would say with it is that resilience training, you have to get the training and you have to get it's a consistent lifelong mission of learning to get better. And the last one is you have to have an open mind. You have to have the ability to be critiqued. You have to have the ability to think outside the box. You have to have the ability to realize that you've made a mistake and you're going to learn from it. I think those three characteristics would really so resilience, open mind, and the need to learn. Those three to go through. It's not there's no shortcut ways. There's no short pathways or oh, I'm not going to do the science degree because that's too hard, or I'm not going to do this course because it costs too much. Like it's a slow process, and it will take you years and years and years to get up to that. I'm a person doing mesophotic rebreather based science, and I'm featured in it's a long, slow pathway, but it is a worthwhile pathway. If I had not done this career, I would not have seen the things that I've seen. I would not have experienced the places and the moments that I have, both the good and the bad, and I would not have met the people along the way that I have met that make it worthwhile. So that would be, I think, in my present immediate answer to that would be that.
That's really good advice, Ed. And thank you for taking us on this incredible dive into science, gear, and grit. So, from shipwrecks to frozen frontiers of Earth's poles, Ed is showing us that true exploration isn't just about going deep, it's about going deeper with purpose. Through the Finnish Scientific Diving Academy, ocean sensors, and his pioneering cold water work, Ed is creating pathways for future scientists, divers, and explorers to understand and protect our oceans in ways we never thought possible. Ed, once again, thank you.
Thank you, Shaff. It's been a pleasure talking to you and catching up with you. And I'm very happy that you invited me to sit and have a chat and share it with the world. And I hope that it passed along some message to someone that may be inspired to follow a new pathway.
I hope it will be. Thank you.